Before us this evening is our annual take a look at the audit report. Matt Montalvo is here this evening. We've put some pages up on the board. Matt, the floor is all yours. If you could, can you speak into the microphone? You can move the mic to you if you need to. You'll find out.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. I'm Matt Montalvo from the firm Drescher Malecki. We are here to perform the external audit for the town's fiscal year ended December 31st, 2016. And I'm here today to present the results of the audit. So we'll click on the PowerPoint. You press enter, yeah. Yep. Okay. So, essentially the overview, what are the products of our audit? First, we'll go through some of the required communications, our auditor communications for the town board. Then I'll move on to the financial statement update, where I'll update you on some of your trends and financial or fund balance levels. And then I will conclude with some overall observations on the financial position of the town, as well as some internal control observations. So we'll get right into the required communications. First, our responsibility under generally accepted auditing standards. What we like to clarify is that we're not responsible for the books and the records. Management is responsible for preparing the books and the records. Our role is to come in as an independent third party and provide an opinion that they fairly represent the town's financial position, or that they can be relied upon by third parties. So we do plan on moving forward with what's referred to as an unmodified or a clean opinion on the financial statements, so that in our opinion they fairly represent the town's financial position as of December 31st, 2016. So that's really the best you can do from an audit standpoint. Independence, every staff, right through the supervisors to anyone who touches this audit, is required to be independent or free of conflicts of interest with the town. So I affirm that all the personnel that worked on the audit were independent, and this is what allowed us to perform our audit in accordance with our standards and provide that opinion. Significant accounting policies and estimates, no real changes in this area. Those are disclosed in the notes to the financial statements. And then other matters, no difficulties encountered, no disagreements with management. We were able to perform a full scope audit. We weren't told not to look at any area. So we were able to, again, perform a full scope audit and provide that opinion on the financial statement. So those are the required communications. Pretty clean from an audit standpoint. If there's any questions at this point before I get into the financial statement side. Okay. All right, so we'll get into the financial statement update, where we'll provide some trends on some of your major funds. The format will be essentially first to look at the activity or our revenues, expenditures, and then our fund balance levels. And it'll follow that format throughout the different funds. Oh, I guess certain information didn't copy. Oh. Okay. Yeah, because it's not a PowerPoint format.
Oops.
Okay. Well, we'll go through the presentation.
Do you have any more paper versions?
I have a few more. I brought it up for the town board. I don't. No. Yeah, it was all embedded in the PowerPoint. But that's why we bring handouts.
Mia, do you have them?
Yeah, and we can provide an electronic copy after the fact as well. So the first graph on page 5, total revenues versus expenditures in the water fund. So essentially what's important here, 2016, our revenues exceeded our expenditures by $67,000. So a pretty favorable trend for the last 2 years. This kind of shows the increase in consumption. With a hot, dry summer in 2016, the town really did capture some additional revenues there and added $67,000 to their fund balance. So on page 6, you can see that what was the impact on the total fund balance. So the water fund balance increased to just over $170,000. The amount assigned for specific use within the water fund is $165,000, and that represents about 12.5% of expenses. The key point in this fund is really it's a cash flow circumstance where the majority of that fund balance is really tied up in receivables or billed revenues that lag as far as the timing of when the cash comes in the door. So you really need to closely monitor the water fund because of that fact. So at year end, there's very little cash in the water fund balance. So yeah, again, 12.5% represents your assigned for specific use. Moving on to page 7, the sewer fund, similar results to the water fund, but almost a break even at 2016. We saw a trending downward in our expenditures due to some debt service payments that came off in the 2016 year. But for the most part, that fund remains stable. So on page 8, when you look at the fund balances, the total fund balance of $293,000 at the end of 16. About $200,000 of that is assigned for next year's budget. So really only leaves $46,000 assigned for the sewer fund. This is definitely a fund in the short term that needs to be looked at and addressed because it is at about a 2.6% level in that available piece. So again, the water and sewer funds I think are the immediate concerns, just because again the nature of those funds are very little cash in the door. It's more on a lag basis because they're billed revenues. Any questions?
I think it's important to remember that this is a picture of where we were on January 1st. It's not where we are today, it's where we were on January 1st.
Correct. Yep. This is the audit results as of December 31st, 16, or January 1st. Yep. So moving on to page 9, the highway fund. Pretty predictable from the highway expense side. A little bit of a boost in 16, and we saw some of the revenues come down related to sales tax and intergovernmental revenues. So a small decrease in the highway fund of about $60,000, and then on page 10 you can see the fund balance levels. The total fund balance is about $850,000 at the end of 16. $570,000 of that is assigned for that specific use. So again, that's the available fund balance within the highway fund. That's about 25% of your expenditures. So just a bit above the GFOA recommendations of about around 17%. So a stable condition within that fund. And then we'll close with the general fund on page 11. And if you look at the activity trend, the last 3 fiscal years, you've seen decreases. A decrease of $181,000 in 16. But again, this was a planned use of fund balance. When you go into your budget process, you analyze the available balances, and during the last 3 years, or even the last 5, those fund balance levels in the general fund have been historically higher than the GFOA recommendation. So I think it was a planned use to spend those funds and to use those, to kind of stabilize the fund position. So at the end of 16, the unassigned portion or available portion is $708,000, or set right at that GFOA recommendation of 17%, or 2 months of operating expenses. That's kind of the measure that they use. So, I think when you look at the general fund, you have seen 3 consecutive years of decreases. Again, it was more of a planned use. Now you're at that right in line with the recommendation. You want to think going forward, that's probably not the trend you want to continue. now it's time to maybe stabilize, going forward and using less of that fund balance. All right. And then, again, just some overall observations. We will issue a formal management letter with some internal control recommendations. There are no reportable findings, so no items that we consider to be of a significant deficiency or material weakness. These we would be required to put in writing. So, from an internal control standpoint, pretty solid. We talked about the water and sewer funds, and really, again, it's just a matter of the function of those funds. So the fund balance levels just need to be monitored a little more closely because it's such a, again, a lag in the cash receipts. We talked a little bit about the general fund and the trend there. You're going to face continued challenges in the budget process, health insurance, other benefit costs that, will rise. So again, that's, just to keep that in mind. When you look at your other special district funds, they reported all increases in all the fire districts, the refuse, the lighting. So all within a stable condition at the end of 16. Any questions?
Are we going to be doing any of the departments this year? Or have we done?
Yes.
Have you done any of the departments?
Yep, we have done the departments. We have our reports drafted and observations for the town. Again, nothing of a material weakness or significant deficiency, but we will have recommendations, on some best practices within the justice as well as the town clerk, tax receiver, and the recreation. So we did cover all those department audits.
Gentlemen? Any questions from the floor specifically about the audit? Kathy can probably get you a copy of it. I don't think you have it at this point, right? Other than copying it.
Yeah, and I like I said, I can send an electronic version if you want to email as well. Yeah, right now we're in draft form, just going through the last minute adjustments, but I'd anticipate by the end of the month I'll get a final copy. So.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much.
Lauren, thank you for the use of your right finger. Okay, we'll go right into